Don't hope this is not a misquote, Jake, but he also said I got good at shooting because my ex-wife annoyed me or something. Like, I swear he said that.
Have you been watching the Olympics at the moment?
Bits and bobs. Yeah, I'm a massive fan of Simone Biles.
Well, do you know my favorite thing about the Olympics is the memes on social media? Like my absolute favorite thing at the moment is that Turkish guy, the shooter.
Yeah.
And like all of the memes that are coming out with like somebody with all of the gear on the left-hand side and a list of all of the unnecessary things you do in business, and then just him, and it's just like sell more stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I think we could definitely do a gym version of that. Like on the left-hand side, it would be, I don't know, like 5 membership tiers, changing price points, pandering to members, setting up systems and, automation.
Unnecessary things you don't need.
Yeah. And then literally on the right hand side, it's just like deliver a great product.
And the picture is him like hand in the pocket, just eyeballing the target like a legend. And he was quoted to say something like, he said, all I really wanted from this Olympics was just a nice weekend away with my daughter. Or something. Like, he was just thinking, I didn't even think I'd be any good.
That is just so.
And he also, I hope this is not a misquote, Jake, but he also said I got good at shooting because my ex-wife annoyed me or something. Like, I swear he said that. Maybe someone's added that in.
Yeah, I have no idea, but I'm all here for the memes. Like that guy doing the like the pole vault and his manhood getting in the way. And
Yeah,
you ever seen that one?
I saw that.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's a great time of year because all of those videos and photos just make me die. And I think I definitely need to get on to making a meme for us. So that's just reminded me. But anyway,
put that to the list, mate.
Yeah.
Today we've been away for a couple of weeks.
We have indeed
been tanning it up in south of France, as you can't see. But after a lot of fun, we're back on it. We're going to talk about how this guy, our man, Dan the man, switched his gym model in 3 months.
And this is a question we get all the time, like especially from personal trainers who are, on the gym floor and they're wanting to do this, or perhaps they have a gym already and they have an open membership or whatever, and they want to switch it to a small group PT. That is a big kind of fear a lot of people have at the beginning. It's just like, I just don't want to let down all of my clients.
Where the hell do you start?
Yeah.
Like Dan was 1-to-1, so he had a 1-to-1 PT studio in Essex. 1,500 square foot. But like obviously with a 1-to-1 client model, very, very difficult. Margins are smaller. Dan was doing 100% of the sessions, 10 sessions a day. That's 50 a week. That's not including admin and trying to see your loved ones. So obviously no time for holidays and breaks, not paid when you're away, burning out, needing a rest, all of that stuff. And I'm sure there are loads of people listening to this podcast right now, like all 4 people who are thinking, my God, that is me. That feels like me.
Well, it's one of those things is like, and we've talked about this before, where you're a 1-to-1 PT, but the difference is now you have an actual physical location you need to pay for, like business rates, all that kind of thing that you don't have if you're just renting a gym floor from like a big gym. So I think it's fair to say that he was very keen to switch things up. And that was his biggest goal, was like at the beginning, it's not necessarily, I don't want to get into huge revenue in the first 3 months, but I just want to be able to find a way of seamlessly transitioning my clients into this model.
So we're going to go through the steps that we took with Dan to be able to do that. So you can copy, ideally. But I want to talk about a couple of big pitfalls before we go into this. Number one thing is acquisition does not matter when you're trying to switch your model, because you have no idea on what that model looks like, nor do your clients. And this is a big step, not just for you, but for your current clients. So you want to try and transition those guys without focusing on acquisition. So one thing is, you're not going to hear us even talk about acquisition or what we did with Dan until like step 5 in this. And lots happens before that. So that's the biggest thing. I see people trying to switch up their models, but then start running ads and start doing all this acquisition stuff when they actually haven't like built the new model foundation yet.
And it's like,
that's a big risk.
Yeah. And I think that, again, because people get shiny object syndrome and they think, I've had enough, I'm burnt out, I need to change up my model, I need to do this immediately. And then what happens, to your point, is that they start running ads or something, and they start promoting a new offer within the gym alongside their current offer. And there's all of this confusion, and then they end up maybe acquiring some people into the small group PT, but because the infrastructure isn't set up, it just all falls down. And again, we always talk about you can't waste new clients because, you know, especially with the model that we use of getting them in on like a gateway offer, where you then recommit them to membership. If you're wasting that first initial period in which a client signs up, then you're doomed.
They can't come into a shit show,
No.
but the biggest thing is they can't go into other clients thinking it's a shit show.
Exactly.
So when you're trying to transition your guys into a new model, there's going to be a few murmurings to start with going, oh my God, like what are we supposed to be doing here? Like, you know, all this. And that's fine. But like, you don't want new people to hear that.
No.
You know, so that's really important.
So you have to be delicate. And this started off, obviously, the first step was deciding the actual model because, yes, you know, you've got those kind of consistencies in place in terms of, yes, it's going to be small group PT and we're going to scale it and all this kind of thing. But there's lots of different nuances attached to what small group PT is and how it's priced and all that kind of thing. So you had a call with Dan where you basically created a model sheet for him. So you want to just quickly go through some of those aspects?
Yeah. So step one, obviously, as Jake said, decide the new model. Me and Dan created a model sheet together. I did it. Dan agreed with it. And actually scaled it back even more, which I absolutely loved. So business type, obviously semi-private PT. The coach ratio to client was 1:6.
Like here.
He's got a pretty large, sorry?
That's like here, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, exactly the same. So a pretty large studio, and that was absolutely spot on. The products, we decided on a 12 sessions every 28 days and 8 sessions every 28 days. So you got a 2 and a 3 per week product there. But Dan scaled it back even more. Once we had another chat about this, Dan said, let's just go with the 12. I was like, damn, I love that. I love simplicity. So that's what we do here. We could bring an 8 in later down the line if we wanted to, but like as Dan's results, as we'll get onto in a bit, and right now we don't need to.
What was the thought process behind obviously having those two in place? Was it because of, you know, perhaps risking disharmony amongst current clients?
Yeah, a lot of his guys were on 1 a week.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's a big jump, wasn't it?
Jumping from 1 to 3 when you're so used to just 1 session a week is a big switch. But obviously we come up with some really good copy and we called it the transition letter. Going through why it's going to 3. And Dan is an insanely good coach. One of the best I've ever met, actually. And Dan is just very passionate about making sure that he has the time and bandwidth to be able to help people. And he wants people to have that time and bandwidth to be able to help themselves. So that's why he was really keen on 3, which I love. Timetable, we went Monday to Thursday, 8 sessions a day. Very similar to what we do here, but a few small changes. Those were just for context of sessions: 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 9:15 a.m., 12:30, 5, 6, and 7. Friday, 4 sessions, and then Saturday in the morning, 3 sessions. So just with that, you're looking at just really quick maths. I'm probably going to butcher around 35 sessions a week, which is 15 hours less than what he's doing already as a one-to-one PT. But his revenue per session, when he's full, is going to go from right now, you know, if he's a 50 pound, I think he's a 50 pound PT one-to-one, is going to go to like 108 pounds per session. So he's doubling his revenue per session, which is awesome. Price points, 59 pound a week was what we settled on, which is awesome. And Dan's like, it was really cool to see someone be really confident about price point.
Well, I think like this is the difference between the great coaches and the mediocre coaches, isn't it? When you talk about price to the great coaches, they have so much confidence in their own ability that it's not even an issue and they're happy selling at that price.
Yeah.
Whereas the ones that perhaps doubt themselves are a little bit more reserved about charging, you know, 59 pounds a week. But this is why we love working with people like Dan, is because the coaching element is already ticked and is so in that zone when it comes to coaching and delivery that layering on this kind of thing, this type of stuff just isn't an issue.
When coaches are in that place, competition doesn't matter.
No.
So like what the problem is, the reason why people get so stuck with price point is because they look around and, you know, they might see 4 semi-private studios within 10 miles who are, you know, £50 a month cheaper.
And then they basically list down all the prices locally, and then it's like, I'm going to undercut them all.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that is probably not the best.
Yeah. Like there's a studio, there's a semi-private studio about 8 miles from here, and they're about £80-90 a month cheaper than us. But we weren't about to put ourselves in the same bracket as that, because we wanted to provide a much bigger, greater service.
Yeah, and you've got to create a category
of your own. Yeah, 100%. And terms, a month-to-month membership with 2-month cancellation period. Okay, so that was his model sheet.
So that was decided. We made sure that we're happy with that. So the next thing we needed to do is build the back end. And this is another reason why you can't just make a decision overnight and start promoting it. You need to actually make sure the foundation is set. Otherwise, you're building a house on sand. So a couple of the things that we helped him do is set up the booking timetable. We use Legit Fit. So we made sure that obviously everything was set up to mirror what we have here at Revamp, as well as some of those changes we just mentioned. We mapped out the timetable, and this is, again, something that's overlooked in terms of what his capacity is. Obviously, he's doing 1 to 6. But correct me if I'm wrong, obviously it's slightly bigger than here, isn't it? So there is optionality to perhaps extend that if needs be.
Yeah, because we're 1 to 6, there's going to be a limit to capacity on the timetable anyway. So of Dan's studio, with the current timetable as it is, you're looking at, I think it was like 75 to 85 members, something like that. The really cool thing is obviously you can increase times and increase your timetable. So there's easily room for another, 5 to 10 sessions on that timetable once he hits those capacity numbers, which can then be taken by obviously other coaches.
Hey, quick one from us. If you're enjoying this episode, you'll love our free weekly newsletter.
It's for current and aspiring studio owners who are looking for the latest growth hacks to sign up more members and keep them.
It's a quick 2-minute email covering the stuff we're testing in our own gyms.
So you'll be getting access to what's working today.
If you're interested, you can join 3,500 gym owners and go to thefitpreneur.com and subscribe.
That's thefitpreneur.com. Anyway, back to the episode.
Yeah, and there's a capacity calculator as well. I'll put it in the show notes that you can grab, and it's just, it adds in all of those different variances to find out actually how many people you can actually service in the gym. Because if you go too high, then you risk sessions being overbooked and people not being able to book sessions. If you go too low, then obviously you're missing out on revenue.
Yeah, we work on an 80 to 85% booking rate, don't we, per week, which works really well. And that's factored into the calculator.
Yeah. So obviously we had Legit Fit, we had the marketing software as well with Lead Deck that we introduced Dan to, with all of the automations that we use within Revamp, all of the funnels, all of that kind of thing. So we had everything ready to go in place. So the next part was step 3, which was to actually start transitioning the current clients and speaking to them, which is where you came in.
Yeah. So nothing too scary has happened up to this point for Dan. We decided on his model. He's really excited about that. We're starting to build all the back-end systems. It's all ready to go. Really excited about that. But the scary part comes when we transition current clients. So Dan had 30 one-to-one clients, and it was a really good one-to-one business. Yeah. And the thought always comes into the coach: how many are going to leave me? Instead of how many are going to stay. For some reason, the question is, how many are going to leave me?
Yeah.
And I've done this so many times, not just with my own businesses over the years, but with clients' businesses too. And it is never as many as you think, right? So what we did, we wanted to handle it very delicately. So again, like, acquisition isn't even in our minds right now. We're going to transition these guys because we love them and we want them to be a part of this journey. So we crafted a transition letter highlighting benefits. But what we decided, that's very Suffolk, isn't it? What we decided to do with Dan was Dan wanted to see every single one of them for like 15 minutes one-to-one after their sessions.
I love that.
On the lead up, and use the transition letter as like a template of what he wanted to talk about to them and what was going through his mind and why he felt he needed to do it and why it's going to benefit the client and what he's bringing in and all this exciting stuff. And he did that incredibly well. And at the end of the day, they're one-to-one clients. A lot of them have been with him for many, many years and they love him to bits, right? They want to see him win. And equally, they knew that Dan would always do the best by them. So that resulted in 25 out of the 30 clients agreeing to make the change.
That's huge.
And jump on to semi-private, which is, by the way, just for context, which is a little bit above average, I guess, but that's still like a solid result. That's a solid result. But if you have 30 clients and you're thinking about making this jump, if you're listening to this, or if you have 40 clients or wherever, you should still be aiming for an 80 to 90% conversion of clients moving forward with you if you do it correctly.
And even if you work out the economics of that as well, it's massive, because the amount of time is just saved there just by having those conversations with all of those 30 people. 25 have decided to switch over to this new model. The amount of time is saved in his week, but the revenue stays the same.
So I remember having this conversation with him. His revenue stayed the same, and he cut down his week by like 50%.
Which then allows you to utilize that 50% to grow and scale the business.
Which is what obviously the next couple of steps are about. So
I just to jump back, like I don't think he would have necessarily, I mean, I don't know, but like the 25 out of 30, if he hadn't actually had those 15-minute in-person face-to-face appointments with those people and he just sent the letter via email or in the post or whatever, I don't know if he would have got all 25 to buy in, because obviously in those appointments, there's going to be questions back and forth. So then Dan can then start to tailor the future conversations based on the ones he's just had. So with every 15-minute chat about this whole process, he can actually speak more directly to the individuals. So I think that's massive. And I think doing it in person, and I think we had this chat with them as well, where some of the questions that people generally ask is like, okay, well, how do I book the sessions I want to book then? It's like, well, we've got this new app and you can use this. And to actually be there and show them the phone and even just log them in and allow them to book sessions and show them how easy it is, it just helps them visualize what their life would look like in this new.
Yeah. And just a side note to go on top of that, Jake, he, I think with the 25 that joined, there was like 3 who didn't join, who Dan said, this isn't right for you.
Yeah.
So he had to have a very difficult conversation with clients he loved because they might have had certain illnesses, conditions, or injuries. Just wouldn't, like the small group, they needed that
individualized,
huge one-to-one attention, like to help them move maybe, or to get them in the right positions. And the small group wasn't going to be the right thing for them. So Dan had to let 2 or 3 of those clients go, which was really difficult, but he had to do it for the benefit of his business
and the product,
and the product and himself over the long term. So yeah, some brave decisions made and some scary ones, but it worked out really, really well.
Amazing. Which brings us over to step 4, which is the test weeks. And we did this at Revamp before we launched, and it was really, really helpful. And it just enabled us and the coaches to get a feel for what the sessions will look like and how to choreograph them and program them and all this kind of thing. And Dan being very big on the programming side, this was an important step for him, wasn't it? Just to gain that confidence in this new way of training.
Yeah. So obviously we've transitioned the current clients, and now like most people were thinking, right, acquisition, new members.
Yeah.
But these guys, they need to be transitioned properly. And that isn't just like telling them and having a nice conversation and getting the yes from them. That is actually letting them experience the new product before loads of new faces are like introduced into sessions and suddenly everything changes to them. So what we did, we had like a good month of just testing weeks with the new members. So getting them to experience and the new products, but also like letting the members be focused on like in the new product by Dan. So I think that was really important. So we decided we wanted to do these test weeks to make sure we get the right feedback, to make sure members could be integrated properly, to make sure they're enjoying it, to deal with any like issues that needed fixing as well. You know, it's maybe a member or 2 members might have said, do you know what, this isn't for me, Dan. So you can deal with that without all these new members, like, you know, going, why this isn't like,
and people are generally resistant to change, aren't they?
Yeah, sure.
So, like, if you're changing one thing, which is the way they are showing up for their sessions, and then you then change another thing, which is the people and the faces around them are completely new, then it's going to be quite intimidating, and then people, you know, likely decide maybe this isn't for them. So just allowing that time just was, I think, a nice way of just laying the foundation and actually making more money over time because they're less likely to churn.
Yeah, it's delayed gratification for that because we wanted to make sure that members had the best possible experience on the new product the new way of doing things before we started scaling with ads. And that's what we did. And those test weeks were fantastic. And I will do that with every single new client who decides to go from one-to-one to group, because it's important. And it's important for the coach's confidence. A lot of the time, like one-to-one coaches, Dan's an incredible coach, but he's never actually coached small groups. So like those test weeks were also good for him, right? To get so used to the new program and the new way of doing things.
And again, more confidence in the sales process as well when it comes to selling new people on, because you actually know the product.
Yeah.
It's much easier selling a product that you know than one that you don't know of yet. So
yeah,
giving him that confidence sale is really important.
So just a quick one, towards the back end of those test weeks, obviously we can start prepping our processes for new members. So towards the back end of those test weeks, we obviously got creative ready for ads. This is all in the background. Copy ready for ads. I went up and saw Dan and did role play through sales stuff. All of this stuff happened, but out of, client sight, so we can be ready for step number 5.
Which is to sign up new front-end challengers for the gateway offers. And the way that we work this is we ran Dan through our local ad formula. We got all the funnels set up, all the videos filmed, all the ad creative made, the copy, everything. And then he started running ads. So the outcome of that was that he was obviously, the appointments were starting to get booked into his diary. And what made me laugh is then part of the local ad formula is you scale based on what piece of creative is working. And I think like 5 days later after he launched those ads, he emailed saying like, I'm ready to scale these now. Like these are getting a lot of leads through, and I can see kind of which pieces of creative were working, which is great. So he started doing that. I mean, how long ago? About a month ago now?
Yeah.
Do you want to give a quick update in terms of like numbers so far?
Yeah, so I'm looking at his metrics here in front of me. We started running ads on the 4th of July, which is, a month and a bit ago. So 4th of July, this is July's, obviously the latest month we have, numbers. 104 leads, 19 appointments, 14 sales at a $299 price point. That was a £5.22 cost per lead. Cost per appointment booked was £23.93. New revenue, this is obviously isn't including the recurring revenue he already has in the business. The new revenue was £4,189.96. The return on ad spend was a 9-to-1. So every £1 he put into the ad machine, he was getting £9 back, which is awesome. His cost per acquisition, his CPA was £32.48. So he was spending £32.48 to get £299 back, which I think everyone listening to this or watching this would make that trade, which is great. And this I'm actually seeing him in a coaching call in about an hour, so we'll go through this. But that new cash collected, those new sales would definitely, on top of the recurring revenue you already had, that would have been an over 10K a month, and that would be his first 10K.
And also just the ability to take those appointments with the new time that he has.
Yeah.
That's not often talked about either, is it? It's like, if you're a one-to-one PT, you're using up all of your hours. So the ability to actually acquire new members is harder. Whereas he's got all this time freed up with the revenue still the same as what he had when he was doing one-to-one PT. But this time he can actually use that time to bring more people into the business. And that's what he's doing. So
I think the biggest lesson, just we're going to go on to final words in a minute, but the biggest lesson from all of this is that Dan has doubled his business in 4 months, but he was patient enough to wait for the 4th month to do that. I think that's the biggest thing.
And without those first 3 months, he perhaps wouldn't have hit the same result.
No way. It would have broken. So it's not just all about like, I'm going to move to small group because there's more money to be made there, right? Of course, that's the case. But you have to be patient and be okay with things just being a little delayed whilst you make sure your people are okay. And Dan, like, he's so people first, and he was so, I'm going to make sure my members love this and are okay with this before I start throwing money into acquisition. And that strategy and that patience has paid off because he's 2x the business.
I think that's what being a business owner is all about. Like, I think the mistake loads of online personal trainers make just from our experiences of working with them, you know, a couple of years ago, was there was always this, what now? What can I do now? How can I switch things up? Like, what do I need to do to fix that problem? Like, it was all very short term.
Yeah.
Whereas the great thing about owning a fitness studio and working with these fitness studio owners is that they see their building as a legitimate business with value, right? So it's not just about how can I make another 2K a month like this month or whatever. It's how can I lay the foundations to actually make this business incredibly valuable and deliver a great product. And I think sometimes that is missed in the online world because it's not as tangible as it is in person. And, you know, to your point, like having those 3 months of just making sure everything was set up correctly, those 3 months are a great investment in terms of the long-term vision of the business. And Dan can do whatever he wants with the business long-term. Like he can continue to scale it. He can bring in more coaches. He can add more locations. He can sell the business. But by making those kind of decisions that only benefit the long term and not necessarily the short term, you're able to do that. And it's about, having that clear picture on things.
People, when we used to work online, it was frustrating because people always wanted to 10x or 20x.
Yeah, because
their revenue in a year, right?
That's what they were fed.
But like a good business grows year on year. Like if we're to say to us or to Dan, you know, with the mindset that we have, look, would we be happy with 10% growth year on year? Oh, man,
100%.
Over 10 years, I'll snap your hand off.
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
That sounds great, you know?
It's an asset. And I think that's what's missed online, but that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, let's do that another day. Cool. Final words. So proud of Dan. He managed to pretty much halve his time in fulfillment, but double his revenue, which is a pretty big win, I'd say. It enabled him to get home early, do what he wanted to do. I think he actually had a holiday the other day, which is bloody rare for Dan, which is awesome. Future plans. Now, Dan is about to hire a coach to help him more in fulfillment. We talked about I wanted him to hit like a 50% of sessions taken throughout the week. So if he's doing 36 sessions a week, I want him to do 18 and another coach or 2 coaches to fulfill the rest. So he's about to bring on another guy. But again, like in Dan, never in a rush. He's going to double the transition plan that we had for him, which is just great because he wanted to make sure that his guys were okay with a new coach. His coach was brilliant and all this kind of stuff, which is great. So yeah, and we're obviously continuing to work together past his launch, and now we're right in the depths of his business, which is fun.
Awesome. I love stories like this. I love like somebody's got a plan, like Dan. And
can you keep it going?
Yeah, I can't keep it.
You tried to. I know you tried to.
And it's paid off. And you know, it's taken 3 to 4 months to completely change his entire business, and now there's room to scale and do whatever he wants with it.
If you're a one-to-one coach right now, you have your own personal training studio. I know there's loads out there. Even if like people have this like limited mindset of like, I have a really good personal training studio, which is like 500 square foot in my garage right now. It's really nice, but I have a one-to-one. I want to go small group, but I have to go get a new location. You don't a lot of the time. A lot of the time you can just set up the model differently.
Yeah. Or just even do like 1 to 2. And like, you know, it doesn't have to be minimum 6. Like a group is still 2.
Yeah. Like 1 to 4. It really doesn't matter. It just obviously it will depend on what your goals are for the business, what your revenue goals are, and what you actually want to do with your life. So, but if you're one-to-one right now and you want to transition into small group, let us know, reach out. We have a waiting list right now, but we potentially might open up some spots in September. We'll see how things go, but reach out and we might be able to help you.
Awesome. So, cool. Well, have a good rest of your day. That is the pod.
Peace.